Alright, I know I'm late on this, but yes, Russell Westbrook has been traded to the Washington Wizards in return for John Wall. And I've seen a lot of people with mixed opinions about this. On one hand, you have people saying both the Wizards and Rockets lost. You have people saying the Wizards won, and people saying the Rockets won. And I've been struggling to come up with my own opinion on this trade, but after considering everything between these two teams and looking at everything after the dust has settled, I am taking the side that both teams lost this trade, without a doubt. So let's talk about why, and also what this could mean for each of them going forward, and spoiler alert, the Rockets are of course in more trouble than the Wizards. So let's get into the video.
Even though I believe in John Wall and I know he can ball, I just don't see how this keeps James Harden wanting to stay in Houston, which is why I'm at a loss as to why Houston would do this deal, other than the fact that they tried to get rid of Russ. And, you know, according to sources, a lot of folks they didn't want Russ because Russ can be fiery and very strong-willed and strong-headed. And because of that, basketball operations folks may not have wanted to deal with him. So the Houston Rockets might have felt they got the best deal they could. I just don't see how this helps them more than, the skill set. Russell Westbrook and James Harden didn't want to play together, Max. We all know that. But I don't see how John Wall, who's very similar to Russell Westbrook, helps James Harden want to stay in Houston.
So after the Rockets were once again beaten in the second round of the playoffs, they looked like they were likely heading towards a rebuild. Their brand new pairing of James Harden and Russell Westbrook did not work out at all. Head coach Mike D'Antoni left, general manager Daryl Morey left, and those were like the two main people that convinced Harden and the Rockets overall that this faster paced style of play would result in competing for a championship. Well, after that didn't happen, they both left, and I'm not sure what Harden was feeling when that happened, but it couldn't have been good. And this probably wasn't helped by the fact that his superstar friend and teammate in Russell Westbrook requested a trade shortly after. Robert Covington was traded for picks, and there were rumors of the possibility of Harden going to Brooklyn. Now, due to Westbrook being injured during the league suspension, he came back very rusty and not playing at all like he did in the month prior to the suspension of the season. And so a lot of people, including myself, believe that it would be difficult to find a trade package for him since his stock had likely gone down because of his performance in the bubble. And that's exactly what happened, as we then started to believe that they may not even be able to get rid of him at all. Then, just a few days later, it happened. The Wizards agreed to trade John Wall and a 2023 first-round pick to the Rockets in return for Russell Westbrook. Now, we'll talk about the Rockets in a couple minutes, but for now, let's talk about the Wizards. So they really have been struggling over the last few seasons after John Wall's extensive injury history. In the 2016 offseason, he had surgery on both of his knees, and in December of 2018, he played his last NBA game as of the time of this video, because he was ruled out for the rest of the season with a heel injury, and then he would go on to tear his Achilles after slipping and falling at his house, which ruled him out for at least another 12 months. But while all this was happening, Bradley Beal would go on to have some of the best seasons of his career, playing all 82 games 2 seasons in a row and averaging 30.5 points in the 2019-2020 season. But of course, this hasn't been resulting in wins. And so people started to believe that he may end up wanting out of Washington. So people thought that it was going to be Bradley Beal getting traded and not John Wall. But of course life never goes according to plan, so now we have Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal on the same team, and John Wall and James Harden on the same team. Now, the Wizards' situation is still somewhat of a loss in general, but compared to the Rockets, it's a win. Because the way I see it, their W in this trade was getting rid of John Wall's contract. He signed an extension back in 2017 for 4 years, $170 million. And when you have a guy sidelined for 2 years coming off an Achilles injury, that's a lot of money to be paying someone. Because this season they would have been paying him $41 million. So you can see the problem already. And so I feel like that was where they took the W in this trade. Now, where they took the L in my eyes is acquiring Russell Westbrook. Now, I can already hear you typing the comments, so just hold up, let me explain. Now, I'm not saying that he's bad or anything like that, obviously. I'm saying that Washington is just gonna run into a lot of the problems that Houston ran into last season. Because Bradley Beal is now used to having the ball in his hands a lot more, and that's how they've been playing. He even said himself, I don't think it will be anything where he'll come in and try to run the show and do everything by himself, which I think can be problematic to a certain extent, because that's the exact mentality that Russell Westbrook has been running with since KD left OKC. Like, this was literally the main reason he even wanted a trade from Houston, is because he wanted to be the one running the show and wanted to have the ball in his hands. Now, I do think that this has the potential to work out better than Houston because Bradley Beal is not James Harden, and he may be more willing to take a back seat to Westbrook, but that's something that we're just gonna have to wait and see. Russell Westbrook does have high hopes for the season, saying, "The opportunity to win a championship in Washington is really high. Personally, I like the correction that this fan made more, but that's besides the point." Now, Houston is, they're in an interesting spot to say the least, because they traded Russell Westbrook's contract, which I already made a video about why that contract situation just wasn't gonna work, but then they got John Wall, who they're gonna be paying just as much, if not more, than they were paying Westbrook. And he hasn't played in 2 years. Now, that time off could end up being a benefit in that he may end up deferring to Harden more, but at the same time, before John Wall got injured, he had a 30% usage rating, which is 7% higher than Chris Paul's average usage rating during his time in Houston. And the reason that I'm using Chris Paul as a comparison and not Russell Westbrook is because the situation is more similar to that due to their play styles. Because while Chris Paul has been a number 1 nearly everywhere else he's played, him being a number 2 in Houston still resulted in success and being 1 game away from reaching the finals. And so, if John Wall takes more of a backseat to Harden, then I can see it working out better. But given his history, I am a little skeptical of if that will happen. So where does that leave us? To be honest, I don't really know. I don't think either team really made that much progress with this trade, because you still have the possible chemistry problems in Houston and James Harden if they don't significantly change how they use him and how he plays. And you still have the exact issue that Westbrook had in Houston, where he still may need to be fighting for that number 1 option. Like I said before, I do think that Washington is way better off than Houston simply because of the contract situations, but I still don't even understand why this trade even happened. Houston, like, while they do have a real center now in DeMarcus Cousins, they still may run into those same problems that I talked about in the backcourt, which I just remembered that I haven't even talked about defense yet, because defense has been one of Houston's problems recently, especially last season with Russell Westbrook. And while John Wall at his peak is a better defender than Russell Westbrook, everything always comes back to the Achilles injury and everything else, in that we don't really know how he's going to be affected, especially on that side of the ball. And I feel like this isn't really being talked about enough, but John Wall doing dunks like this in an open gym does not mean that he's back, because there is a massive difference between drills and an actual NBA game. You even see this from guys coming back from injuries and they do, like, 3-on-3, 5-on-5 drills in practice. Even then, you'll never truly know or be able to see how they are until you see them in an actual game. That's just something that I wanted to throw in real quick because I've been seeing those clips recently. But anyway, yeah, even after making this video, I still don't even know what to think. Like, this is such a weird situation for both teams, and so I want to know what you guys think about this trade, or thought about this trade, since I'm late. Do you think that this helps either team, or do you think that they're both still exactly where they were? But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new, hit the bell to be notified when I upload, comment down below what you want to see next, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.